This is Fountain
Every
Street
week I find
Church.
it hard to find the best ones, but somehow, like I said, you'll hear what I'm trying to say even when the words
Here,
are
we strive to free the mind, grow the soul, and change the world. Here, there is freedom to doubt and freedom to believe. Here, you can find a house of prayer for all people.
the swallow up Jonah.
Welcome to Fountain Street Church. Join us on the journey.
So how was your garden this year? Mine was lousy. Because I was a lousy gardener this year. And when it got to be like 100, like one day after another, I said, I'll wait until it got a little cooler. It never did. Actually, we were away for a few days at the beginning of the season. I went to see my sister down in New Mexico, attend a conference, which means those were the first really warm weeks. So as I told the early service, by the time we got back, it was like a frat party was happening in my yard. All the plants were running riot, growing wherever they wanted, and were sticking out their tongues at me. Yeah, go ahead. Try and weed us. Go ahead. I tried, but I could not succeed because they grow 24 hours a day. I could only give it maybe an hour or so before the heat would dry. Well, got a very few tomatoes, but overall it's really more embarrassing than not. The weather, though, has broken a bit, and we did 2 weddings here yesterday, and it was very close in here, and thankfully the air cleaned it out. And while it's a little warm under these lights, I know it's okay for you folks. And yet somehow, even at the beginning of autumn, after being here most of the summer, I'm not ready. Does that happen to you too? Of course, yeah. Don't know quite why it turns out that way, but here we are with as much as we can to try to start things off, depending upon a lot of forgiveness from our parents, our children, our workers, our bosses, our neighbors. I won't even get into politics. Help me, dear comrades. Help me on the way to truth and love and justice, for a sermon is only what we make it, not what I tell you. And so may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my strength and my salvation. Well, you've heard the phrase, a cobbler has no shoes. Well, in a lot of ways, a preacher has no church. I don't go to church, you see. I lead worship, I don't actually attend. So in the summer when I'm not preaching, I go elsewhere. I took a couple of Sundays where I didn't actually go to church when we were out of town. I didn't whip myself because I wasn't in church, but when I did go. And this year I made a practice of going to African American churches here in town. I had 3 reasons I wanted to do that. One is to worship outside my comfort zone, as we now call it. That was always a challenge. I attend synagogue services regularly, and that's outside of my comfort zone. But I've been doing that now for 7 years, and in the last few years I also went to other local Protestant and Catholic churches. My face is turned up at First Methodist and Central Reformed and Westminster and Bethlehem Lutheran and Cathedral of St. Andrew and a variety of other places. And whenever the preacher recognizes me, I giggle a little bit because I know I'm kind of upsetting his equilibrium like that. But this year I went down to African American churches. I did that because I hadn't done that before, and I was a little anxious about it. It's a further step away from what I know. But there's another reason too. I serve as the chair of the local Urban League, which serves a dominantly African American population. And it's really hard to lead an organization unless you know who it is you're serving. And one of the ways to meet that community is to go where they go, which is to church. And so this morning I'm going to give you a provisional preliminary report on what I found out. You can do with it whatever you will, but I know I'm going to be pondering it for a long time. To be honest, I started last summer when one of my fellow board members on the Urban League, he's a fellow pastor over at New Hope Baptist Church, so I started there. Now, all of them are very similar in some respects, but I'm going to lift out something that I discovered at each that's true of all. Well, I got to tell you, the thing that really got me when I got to New Hope Baptist Church last year was the ushering. They have a bunch of ushers, men and women, and they are trained like military. When they usher, it isn't, thank you for coming here. I mean, and our ushers are great. When I say usher, it's like, here, let me show you to your seat. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go to church, I kind of sneak in the back, and when I have a little quiet, a little contemplation, I don't want anyone to notice me. I want to be by myself. But when you go to a black church, first of all, you stand out. And they want you to feel like a guest. Now, if people come to your house as a guest, do you just let them walk in the door and sneak in a corner and kind of hide? No, you bring them into the dining room or the living room, you sit them down, you give them a place to sit. Ushering is a very conscious and eager way to connect. And I wasn't expecting that. It also meant that the moment I got shown to my seat, someone else was shown to the seat next to me. Now, you ever been stuck in a checkout line at the store when it was really slow? Or maybe in a traffic jam and you look over to the other person in the other car. These are strangers, right? But you end up talking to them because you're kind of stuck there. So I end up talking. Here's the deal. If no one had sat next to me, I would have talked to no one. But when someone shows you to your seat and then shows someone else to the seat next to you, they're virtually saying, would you two talk? It's impossible to be a guest in someone's house and be silent, is it? That would be rude. So what I'm learning from New Hope Baptist is that this is a community at worship, and when you go, you are part of the community. You're not a visitor. The moment you are there, you are part of the community itself. You may be a guest, but you belong to the community, and they will care for you, but you have to care back. I'm wondering, do we make that kind of message evident to the people who visit us? Do we consider those who are, anyone here for the first time? Go ahead. All right, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Now, Bill Brunner, would you reach over and shake hands with that person, please? Come on. See, they're not in the net. Come on, reach over. You can do it. There you go. See, man, that hurts so much. I can just tell. Oh, man. Now, you can talk to me later, but the deal is you belong to us for now. We should feed you, not just food, but with friendship. And that's something we can learn from, I think, as a way to say, just because someone's coming in the door for the first time doesn't mean that we should regard them as outsiders. They already took the biggest step. They came in the door. Show them to the living room. Don't let them stand in the hall. So that was one of the things I learned, is that it's okay to be shown to your seat. You decide whether or not that's something we're going to do, but I thought about it. In the African American experience, worship and solitude are mutually exclusive. You may pray in your closet, but you go to church. And church is a place where people go and you join them. This summer I started over at First Community African Methodist Episcopal Church, one of the older African American churches in town. It has an older building. It's older than our building. It's smaller. Now, remember how hot it was? But I got dressed up. One of the things I have learned over the years is that dress for church when you go to visit African American churches. I explained this earlier this morning at eWorship. You know, most of you would like to be able to think on the weekend you can dress down. You have to wear a suit, go to work. For many people in the African American community, their work consists of wearing overalls, nursing scrubs, waitressing uniforms. They dress down to go to work. On Sundays, the day they can dress up. And so when we think, why are they so dressed up? Because that's the day they can be the person they know they are. And so I dressed up too, because you don't want to show up making a mockery of someone else's point of view. But it was hot. I took a handkerchief. It was air conditioned. Every church I went to was air conditioned. Every church I went to except this one.